Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If we can begin. This is the Detroit Lakes League of Women Voters welcomes you to our forum this evening, and we will be listening to the candidates for the Chamber of Commerce, followed by the candidates for the school board. So, I'd like to, first of all, thank the Sheriff's Department for giving us this excellent place to hold our forum tonight, to thank the Chamber of Commerce for assisting with promoting the event. Obviously, they've done a good job of promotion because we have a goodly turnout here tonight. And, of course, to thank Kevin Mitchell, who is going to be recording this whole evening for us. And it will be available to be viewed on the League of Women Voters Facebook site after this evening performance. And I shouldn't call it a performance because we know it is an informational session. The League of Women Voters sponsors the public forums because it is our mission, and has been for 101 years, to promote active participation in government and to influence public policy through education and advocacy. The League does not endorse candidates for office or political parties. So the views tonight are from the candidates. Each candidate will have an opportunity to answer the questions presented and prepared by the League and through audience participation. You may have received a card as you checked in that if you want to answer a question, write down your question, and a League member will come around and pick it up for you. The League members helping with this activity: Mary Haney, Marcia Potvin, and Beth Priday. Tonight, we are going to be, each speaker will have 1.5 minutes to address each question. I'm going to ask you please to silence your cell phone and to remain quiet during the presentations, because it is a live recording, live microphones in the room. The questions will be timed. Our timers tonight are Deanna Sinclair, Marietta Keenan, Bonnie Graham. And ladies, if you would show how this is going to happen. Each speaker will have 1.5 minutes to answer each question. When there are 30 seconds left, they'll see that card, 30 seconds. Secondly, they will then be timing even more closely. There'll be 15 seconds left, and they will get that card, and then they will finish their sentences, and then the stop sign. And that means, okay, you're done. But should anyone get carried away and go a little farther, this is serious business. Yes, we don't have a hook, but it's close to that. All right, we are going to begin. We'll start, as protocol would have us, with the incumbents for the City Council candidacy. And the first speaker will be Matt Belke. And Matt, can you tell us a bit about yourself and tell us what characteristics and experiences prepare you for this position?
Sharon, they asked in the back if the candidates felt comfortable standing up and taking the mic up with them because they can't see who you are, just in the introductions, so
okay.
They know who's speaking. Okay.
Do you want us at the podium or just here?
Just there.
Just okay.
You want to take the mic up?
Take your mic.
Do I need one?
Yeah.
Oh, you got a good voice.
I was just saying, I've never been quiet. Good evening. My name's Matt Belke. I've been in town since 2002. Graduated from Gustavus Adolphus College, moved up here. So if you're a Concordia grad, please don't hold that against me. I've been in town. While I've been in town, I've worked at Young Life's Castaway Club, which is a non-denominational Christian outreach camp at Pelican Lake. From there, went into banking for 6 years, and now I've been at Lake Shirts for 10 plus years and really enjoy it. During that time here in town, I've married my wife of 17 years, Amy Bolke. She's originally from town. Been a kindergarten teacher for 17 years at Rossman. 2 kids in the school district. My daughter's 8 in 8th grade, and my son is Jay and in 5th grade. Characteristics I bring to the table would be my 7+ years on the city council already. Upon that, I've been involved with many groups in the city council and outside of that, involved with Young Life, youth hockey, and the Detroit Lakes Athletic Foundation treasurer. I've been on the hospital foundation board, and I think one of the things that I can bring to the table is the ability to listen to many different ideas. And how do I realize, take everybody's idea and mold them into one to get going in one direction that's best for Detroit Lakes. I think that would be a characteristic. The other would be determination and making Detroit Lakes the best place we can make it to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt Belke. And the second incumbent, Natalie Bly. What characteristics and experiences prepare you for this position? And tell us a bit about yourself.
Sure. I'm not as loud, so I need the microphone. My name is Natalie Bly. I moved here 12 years ago because of our school districts. I was looking for a place to raise my children, and it was just the right size. So we moved here. I have a business degree from MSUM, and when I first moved here, I started a lot of volunteer projects around town with Rossman PTO, church, the museum board, the DLCCC, and Water Carnival. Water Carnival was my big one where I had to present to city council a few times, and that's when I learned of my interests that I didn't know existed. And since I was the Admiral, it was what's next because I was too old to be a JC anymore. So it was the city council, and when I ran for city council 4 years ago, I walked almost the entire town. It was 51 miles that I tracked, and I got to meet everybody, and it was a lot of fun. And thank you for all of you that welcomed me into your home and gave me the tours. So I have been on the city council for 4 years, and in that time, we've done a lot of projects. We've talked housing, daycare, growth, and I'd like to continue to have those discussions for Detroit Lakes.
Thank you, Natalie Bly. They've asked in the back of the room if you would stand for your introductory speeches. So, Celeste Copy.
All right. So my name is Celeste Copy. I was born and raised here in Detroit Lakes. And louder. Oh, sorry. There we go. Feedback, there we are. So I graduated from Detroit Lakes High School, went on to Carleton in Northfield, Minnesota. I graduated with a degree in history. From there, I went on to live in 4 countries in North Africa, Europe, and the Middle East. I've been back here for a year and a half. When we think about civic engagement, community engagement, I learned how to do that at the age of 7 when I helped my grandma carry in groceries to Baki Lutheran Church and make huge batches of sloppy joes for the church supper. That went throughout my career into high school, into college, working at the civic engagement office. And then my first career out of college was helping build democracy in Tunis, Tunisia. That meant promoting cultures of volunteerism, and I see that 30 seconds there. That came fast. But in building philanthropy in that country as well. So when I came back a year and a half ago, I was like, ooh, yeah, it's time to get involved. How to do that. And one of my passions here is civic engagement, so that is why I am here, and I see the next time.
Thank you, Celeste. Jackie Bubolz.
Okay, I'll just go like this. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this and having the candidate forum so you all can be informed voters. Thank you all for being here. So I'm Jackie Bubolz, and a little bit about me. I was born and raised here in Detroit Lakes, graduated from high school. I won't share with you the year. It's not relevant. But then I went off to college elsewhere, graduated with a degree in marketing. My husband and I, Mitch Bubolz, decided to come back to this community to start a family and make this our home. So we've been back here and making Detroit Lakes our home since 1997. I've worked in human resources, organizational learning and development, and now in healthcare. I have been with Essentia Health for about 14 years in various roles. And I've always believed in giving back to the community that has given me so much. So I've served on a number of boards, which I think gets to the qualifications and why, again, I'm running is to give back and ensure that our community can continue to grow, thrive, and be relevant. My board service has included the school board, the Vision Council of First Lutheran Church. I was chair or president during COVID, which I would not recommend. And I've served on the Crisis Center, the Food Pantry, West Central Initiative, and also the ELCA Northwest Synod Consultation Committee. So again, just a lot of experience within the community giving back. And I just want to make this a really great place to live, work, and play. And I need to stop now.
Thank you, Jackie. My grid was prepared before I saw the order in which people were sitting. So you're going to be hopping up and down, I guess. Jay DeRaney, would you speak next?
My name is Jay DeRaney. Some of you might recognize me more with a scrub top than with a regular shirt. But I was born and raised in Grand Forks, went to the University of North Dakota, graduated from the University of North Dakota with a degree in accounting, and then I worked for Honeywell in Minneapolis area. Finding that not to be my niche, I went back to the University of North Dakota, ultimately graduating from the University of North Dakota School of Medicine. Went to residency for 4 years in Wichita, Kansas, University of Kansas, becoming an OBGYN physician. After 16 years of higher education, I felt it was time to get a job. So I looked for a job, and I looked at New Ulm, I looked at Owatonna, I looked at Grand Forks, Cambridge, and I looked at Detroit Lakes. Detroit Lakes won my heart. I was engaged at the time. We both enjoyed Detroit Lakes and have been here for 22 years practicing medicine. I've been very fortunate. The community has accepted me very well, and I've been very successful in my career. I do also want to give back, feel I have a lot of assets to contribute, my accounting background, my ability to work with people to come to medical solutions, which can be transferred to other parts of government, to government or other decision making. So I really feel I can contribute and want to contribute to make this a great place. And I want to thank the League of Women Voters and also for the attendings for hosting us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay DeRaney. Sean Carlson.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Sean Carlson. I grew up in the Fargo-Moorhead area, graduated from NDSU, joined the Air National Guard right out of high school. In fact, I just retired this summer after 25 years. After that, I moved down to Brandon, Minnesota, where I worked for a small telecommunications company. And while I was there, I got involved with my community quite a bit. I was on the volunteer fire department. I became an EMT. I actually worked part-time for a Ringdahl ambulance. I was involved with church. I was involved with other civil organizations down there. And then I moved up to Detroit Lakes after I came to work for ARVIG 10 years ago. I still work for ARVIG out of Perham. I scaled back my involvement in civic duties at that point. I had a new family. My two girls are actually here tonight. So they can see what happens at these types of things. And since I moved here, I've been involved heavily with church and on and off with various things where I can support. I've been on the planning commission for over a year and a half now, and I really want to continue that civic duty, that service. I think it's important for us to give back to our communities and continue to get involved. And I want to demonstrate that for my children as well. I want them to have that example, and I want us to have a great community, to continue to have a great community to live in, to bring in businesses, to create a great place for people to live and work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean Carlson. Mike Stearns.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks to the League of Women Voters, and thanks to you all for being here. A good demonstration for all this community does as far as being active for public services. My wife and I, Amy, we've lived here 20 years now. We moved here in 2002. We raised our two kids here. We're now empty nesters, and that's not why I'm running for office. But we have so appreciated what Yale has meant to us over these past 20 years. The first year we were here, we said yes to every invitation to do anything that we are invited to do. We were thankful that after the first year we could finally start saying no, because there are so many things you can do here. And so For the first 15 years here, I worked at Midwest Bank as a community banker. The last 5 years, I've been traveling around visiting with other banks and other credit unions in the area. And, you know, that 5 years traveling around, I realized how lucky we are to live where we do. So after, as far as civic duties, I think I've done a lot of things, especially being involved in Rotary. As far as the civic part, I've been on Development Authority for 9 years, just joined the Public Utilities Commission. The running joke in my household is that even though I don't read that much, I'm on the library board and have done that for 10 plus years. But that's how much I believe in the library, is all the good things they do. So even though I'm not the reader, I do it. But thanks for being here.
Thank you. The first speaker on the next question will be Natalie Bly. What are the most important challenges facing Detroit Lakes, and how do you propose to address them?
So this conversation has come up a few times, I feel like, in our council meetings or subcommittee meetings, and I always refer to the three-legged stool as being housing, daycare, and job growth. And without addressing the first two, the housing issues, I've been in housing most of my career, and when it comes to housing, and I've developed homes in 6 different communities, Detroit Lakes is double the assessments that every other community that I've built in is. And I think we need to address our assessment policy, and that's the one thing that on City Council we can do to help control affordable housing. The other ones, labor and materials, are kind of out of our control, so I think we need to really sit down and address our assessment policy. The next one is daycare. I was just asked to be a part of the Children's Initiative, determining what funds are provided to what daycare. Daycares for additional things that they identify that they need. So I'm going to sit on that committee, and then also we need to bring more job development to our community for growth, but we can't have more growth without providing housing and daycare for our families to move here.
Thank you, Natalie Bly. Celeste Coffey, what are the most important challenges?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to piggyback off of daycare and housing and say that daycare is a part of unseen infrastructure, and we know it's a need. And in this area, we typically, I think, rely on the county to be a leader in that area, but that's something we can certainly step up in the city. And to see the costs that are coming from daycare, we do have seed money at the county for people to get into daycare, but what about those already in it that need a little extra boost so they don't leave it? That's definitely, I think, where we could step up as a city. In terms of housing, right? So I'm a young person. I'm the ripe old age of 28. My peers in town, that is number one. They struggle with it. A lot of people are renting and spending like half their income on this. So we need to diversify our housing options, look at incentives for developers, and really lean into what our HRA is already doing. It's not something that we can fully solve overnight, but we can start helping little by little because we need young people here. Has anyone heard of silver tsunami? It's a really weird term that people use to describe aging population in rural Minnesota. So it's something, this workforce shortage that we're in right now that we're all struggling with, it's not going away anytime soon, and we really need to look at how to make this community attractive to more young people, and at the same time really engaging people who don't, I guess, identify as young, and really engaging retired folks in a way that is fulfilling for everyone involved. So thank you.
Thank you, Celeste Coffey. Jackie Bubolz.
Thank you, Sharon. If at any time you can't hear me in the back, will you please raise your hand? I tend to soften a little bit. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. So I think, Natalie and Celeste have certainly identified some of the specific issues that we have as a city. So I don't know that I would add anything in addition, other than I think what's really important and a critical issue is the balancing of the wants and the needs of the different stakeholders. Because you can ask anyone about one issue and they're going to want this, and you ask another person, they're going to want this. And so how do we, as a city council, how do we as a community come together, gather input, get feedback, and really study the issues at hand and come out with something that is good for the community, long-term and short-term, while being fiscally responsible. There's always going to be critical issues that come in front of us as a city council, as a city, and it's really that, how do we balance the needs and the wants of all the different people that have opinions of how we should do what we should do. So daycare, infrastructure, housing, roads, taxes, workforce, they're all really, really important issues that we need to address.
Thank you, Jackie Buboltz. Jay DeRaney.
Thank you. I think I would echo the same concerns, housing, jobs, and daycare. I think, being here 22 years and seeing patients, the daycare problem is not a new COVID problem. It has been accelerated by COVID. However, patients have commonly had problems locating daycare services. I think the city and county governments need to start lobbying state and adjusting the requirements to become a licensed daycare provider. I think they've become too restrictive, which has kept people from that industry. The other thing are streets. I feel we need to be fiscally responsible. However, the local government aid from the state was in 2001 was about 1.6 million. This year for 2023, it's going to be about 355,000. That decline over the years kind of has been seen in the quality of the streets in this city. There have been some plans, and already we see new construction going on, but there needs to be additional new construction of streets and also maintenance of those streets and our public works. So I think that's an important part, in addition to everything else that the other candidates have stated. I think having a city with good streets and good, and it's what we expect and what our citizens should expect, and we drive on them every day, we see them every day, and then also visitors and tourists that come here, they see that also, and it's a reflection of our town also.
Thank you, Jay DeRaney. Sean Carlson.
Thank you. I'm kind of echo. I think not to sound too much like a broken record, but those three big things: housing, job development, and daycare. And I think job development and daycare kind of go hand in hand. I really think those two things. If we don't have good daycare, it's hard for people to go get good jobs. If we don't have good jobs, it's hard to bring people in to, it's hard to have good daycare to support all of that. And housing is a real challenge too. I have employees who commute from, 45, 50 minutes away that would love to buy a house in our communities that can't find them. They're too expensive. And you look at the cost of new housing that's going up, it's incredible. It's not something I could have afforded when I started my career. It's gone up exponentially. And then infrastructure, I think, is also an important thing. I think it's balancing that long-term need with the tax burden. We have to think about the long tail of not maintaining what we have. To your point of the streets and roads, we have to maintain the streets and roads. If we don't, that will build, and then we'll have a bigger bill, and that will continue to compound. So we have to really think long-term and make the right investment in our infrastructure, and ensure that we're thinking about what is the impact of that 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, both from the standpoint of the ongoing maintenance and the tax burden to our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean Carlson. Mike Stearns, what are the most important challenges?
I'll save you 80 seconds. I agree with everything they've said.
That's good. And Matt Belke, what would you add?
Matt Boke. With this, I echo the big three. The daycare, the housing, the jobs, those all go hand in hand. To me, that's a public-private sector working together with individuals to get those done. But I also look at this and go, there's a lot of infrastructure challenges that we have in Detroit Lakes. Not only the roads that we've touched on, I've got more calls over roads this spring than I ever have in 7 years, but also the buildings and the facilities of Detroit Lakes. We've been very fortunate to put a brand new police station up with a 50-cent sales tax and paid it off in 3.5 years. That's amazing. But there's a long list of other projects coming up. Looking at Washington Ballpark, the City Hall, the library, the bathroom remodel, and the roof projects. The retired police station, what do we do with that? The bathhouses, the pavilion, the arena. So there's a lot of different projects coming up. And to Jay's point, looking at local government aid, the LGA, that we've lost over $15 million since 2003, I believe it is. That's a heck of a chunk that we've lost, but thank goodness our tax base and our town has been growing to overcome that. At some point, though, we need to look at another funding source to take care of all that and look out down the long-term plan to get that done, because our tax base right now can't afford to take all those projects and whack them off. It'd be great if we could. Unfortunately, it's just not realistic.
Thank you, Matt. The next question first speaker will be Celeste Copy. Affordable and available housing continues to be a significant challenge and hindrance in filling available jobs in Greater Minnesota and Detroit Lakes. What role specifically do you see the city in overcoming this deficit?
Ooh, here we go again, housing. Again, I think we have a great HRA really looking into this issue. And so instead, I'm going to use this question to kind of answer to how I approach these issues and several others, which would be, I have a master's in political science, and this has really allowed me to analyze government from many different perspectives. On top of that, the 4 countries I've lived in all had various levels of infrastructure. I'm talking top-notch, admittedly better than here, to like, whoa, you get Wi-Fi on a good day. So I have an eye for infrastructure from that experience of living in places with dependable and undependable services. So I would take this housing question, which we already spoke a lot about, and brought it to all infrastructure-related issues and say that it takes curiosity and careful examination and really going out and talking to people, because I think it's sometimes can be easy to lock ourselves in rooms with spreadsheets, but it's really getting out there and hearing from people and different experiences, because there's so many different experiences, right? And young people are gonna have wildly different challenges than people who aren't young. And I'm not up here just for young people, I'm up here for everyone out here in the community, because I'm running for alderwoman at large, not aldermen. So thank you.
Thank you, Celeste. Jackie Bubel, specifically, what do you see the city doing to overcome the deficit of housing?
Thank you, Sharon. As it relates to housing, I think we need to look at our other partners. I think as a city, we certainly have some things we could do, but also the county and private investors as well, and bring them all to the table and how we can solve this together rather than trying to compete against each other and solve it separately. So I think bringing the people together, the entities together that can do some problem solving for us as a community. And then you talked about workforce, Sharon, as well. Is that part of the question?
Just housing specifically.
Housing specifically. Yeah, that's my answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jackie. Jay DeRaney, what specifically would you see the city doing to overcome the housing shortage?
I think there's one thing we need to look at is our TIF money available in Detroit Lakes, both the Detroit Lakes TIF money. Becker County also has a TIF program. I don't think that's utilized as much, at least on the county level. Some of the some of the lengths of the TIF incentives could be lengthened, could be adjusted. So I think there can be some changes there to help with housing. The problem right now is the cost of construction and the interest rates, and that's pretty much out of anybody's control. There's also state workforce housing TIF money, low-income housing credits for builders. So there's a lot of other programs that could be looked into for contractors and other entrepreneurs. There's also, sometimes we have to think outside the box and look at other creative financing options. And I know there's some people out here, specifically in this room, that have some ideas on some creative financing for entrepreneurs.
Thank you, Jay DeRaney. Sean Carlson.
Thank you. I think this is a tough question in the short term, especially because we've got high rates of inflation, we've got higher interest rates, we've got building costs, materials costs that are up and continue to stay up. If housing slows down a little, those costs will come down or at least stabilize a little, and that'll help. I think the city needs to really look at how we can encourage more single and multifamily dwellings, how we can create opportunities to fund and finance these things. I like the suggestion of utilizing TIF funds. Are the ways that we can we find other ways to spread out some of the costs of the specials, and those special assessments are high, yes. the cost of putting those in is high as well. Those services aren't free. And there's a lot of infrastructure to maintain in order to provide those services to the city residents. So what are ways that we can look, what are things that we can do to help make that initial investment more affordable? Especially when you start looking at introductory single-family homes being, over $200,000. That's a lot to swallow for somebody who's, just starting their career. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean Carlson. Mike Stearns.
Yeah, it's a blessing and a curse. I mean, we're dealing with we've put in a lot of new housing over the recent years, but using TIF and everything through the Development Authority. But we also have such a growing economy that we're just trying to fill the gap as it's whatever's coming in is being filled up. So the Development Authority was trying to find ways to revitalize the current housing stock. I mean, I know they offered like a $10,000 grant program for a while to contractors to build and renovate, and there was discussions to do things like that. So, yeah, trying to think outside the box to try to make things happen. Using TIF is a good way to do it for multifamily housing, but try to find other people to think creatively and come forward to the city with those thoughts.
Thank you, Mike Stearns. Matt Belkey.
Matt Bokey.
Belkey?
Bokey, yeah. But I've been called worse, so it doesn't matter.
Well, I'll not make that mistake again, Matt.
A couple of different approaches to look at this. Keep in mind, I was one of 9 older people on the council and I was a proponent of the Pelican Heights. It was a public-private housing development that was basically designed for low income to get that done. I know there was private business money in there. From the private sector, Lakeshire's donated to that project. There was a company out of Walker that put the plan together to get through all the red tape, and the city was involved. So a lot of different projects like that we could do. We're just one of many communities fighting to get those dollars to do that. The HRA was mentioned. That's another great program that we've levied the last 2 years on to get money to help build up some of these homes in town. The last idea is there's a lot of a lot of neighborhoods that are looking tired. Go with me because it's kind of a half-baked idea. But looking at this, we have a trade school in town. What a great asset. How could we work with the Development Authority or MMCDC to purchase a home that's on the market that may be a little bit tired, to work with the trade school, to get the interior design team to work with that, to get the carpentry skills, to bring it up to speed. Maybe we find a semi-retired contractor that would be willing to help out. From there, put it on the market, and whatever funds would go back, pay back the initial purchase, and then kind of keep rolling those projects together. Like I said, it's kind of a half-baked idea, but there's got to be some other opportunities and other private sector trade schools in town that we could look at and kind of really extend our reach to see what's out there to help that.
Thank you, Matt. And Natalie Bly?
Okay. I feel like this question is unfair to me because I've been in housing most of my life, so I feel like what I have is all the answers right here. It may not be, but some of those things that we can't control a lot of our housing costs, and that's regulations. While building homes, I designed one floor plan and had the same floor plan built the next year. And with one change in regulations at our state level, it increased that house by $50,000. So those are some of the things we can't control, those regulations that exist. Our HRA program with those tired homes in these communities, the city council levied $150,000 for the last 2 years. And that's an income-based project where we are able to help with those tired homes and give some updates like furnace replacement, roof, et cetera. TIF incomes, TIF districts were mentioned. Well, as building in TIF districts, that's set by HUD, and those income levels haven't kept up with what it's costing for the mortgage payments. So you have to be under a certain income to qualify for these TIF homes. So for developers, if you can't sell that home to this income level-based family to meet the mortgage payment, you only have a small audience you can actually sell to. Assessments. Assessments are one of the things I think we can really reach in addressing that policy. But the other thing I think we should be looking at are smaller homes, smaller lots, smaller price tags. We are a fast-paced community, and today we can no longer keep up with all of our yard work and our house projects. So if we are to continue, I think we have to look at our smaller homes, smaller lots, smaller price tags.
Thank you, Natalie Bly. The first speaker on the next question will be Jackie Bubolz. How would you address the issue of residential properties that are run down or derelict within the cities?
Thank you, Sharon. I think a couple approaches, and that I can think about without understanding all of the exact codes of the city. But is there some monetary incentive we can give for that property owner to fix up? Is there some challenges that that property owner is facing that makes it difficult for them to be able to do that? And how can we, do we have some resources or sources to be able to help them? I think, if you provide some incentive and they don't, and they're not willing to do it, then I think that's another conversation that needs to be had. And again, I honestly haven't studied the codes around what we can do as a city, what we can force people to do or not force them to do. But I think I'd start with sort of the why, and do we have resources that we can help that homeowner with the necessary repairs to get the property up to code.
Thank you, Jackie. Jay Deraney, how would you address the issue of residential properties that are run down or derelict within the city?
Also, I think we need to look at the core reason for, why this property has become into that state of affair. I think we also should assist that person in reasonable efforts. However, keeping the ordinance or code and applying that, giving the person a reasonable amount of time, but still the code has to be enforced after a certain amount of time, but assistance as needed to a certain degree.
Thank you, Jay Deraney. Sean Carlson.
I'll echo what the first two have said. I think building codes and ordinances, that compliance side is one side of it, right? Are they in compliance? And then I think we have to ask the question is, for example, are the ordinances the right ordinances that we should have? I really appreciate the root cause kind of approach that was just mentioned. Why are they having trouble? What are the resources that are available? I think one of the best things that the city can do is help the homeowner know what resources are available. I mean, there are tons of programs that are out there. There are grant programs, there are other things. I don't know which ones specifically apply to the given situation, but I think if we can help tie people to the right resources, that's probably one of the best ways we can assist our residents in these scenarios. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Stearns.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I don't know all of the ordinances, but we will probably get to that point where we have to learn them in more detail, and we will do so. And then whether or not there are all of those programs out there that can serve those people, great. If there is a need that isn't being met, that maybe we do need to have more of a discussion on how the council could create a new fund, within a budget, or maybe using development authority funds or whatever the source could be, maybe grants. That's one thing I admire about this community. Watching the development authority and other organizations, municipal organizations, find funds out there. Boy, I tell you, they leave no stone unturned, I think is the term, and they do a great job. So maybe that could be one option we could pursue.
Thank you, Mike. Matt Bokey.
Thank you, Sharon. I'll be the first to admit, I've been in the council 7 years, and I don't know all the ordinances. It's a full book and a full-time job to stay on top of that. So don't feel bad, guys. The other thing looking at this is there's a lot of different issues when you're looking at here. Maybe it's broken windows, broken doors, paints, garbage in the yard. We're a recreational community. I dare you to drive past a neighborhood that doesn't have a boat, an ice castle, a camper, all the toys that some end up in the backyard, some are in the side yard, to try and clean that up and tell them that can't be back there. Well, now you're pushing all those toys onto the street. So now that turns into a parking issue and everything like that. So everything kind of looks differently. I can say the best thing we've probably done in the past to help this is hire an inspector, Priscilla. She helps with all the rental inspections, that every rental in town gets inspected 3 years. That's really helped to clean that up. Are there still issues out there? You bet there are. But at least that's definitely helped take it a step in the right direction. Priscilla is very good about informing what the issue is, but then how can we help? Rather than coming down with an iron fist and saying you got 30 days, it's here's some options that could bring this back into compliance. I'll check back with you in 30 days. You know, is it something that you've had something come up in that 30 days that we need to address it? Then we can look at that again. But there's a lot of people in town that could use assistance and a good helping hand to get them help going in the right direction. Some of it could be just ignorance. They just don't know that that's an ordinance. You can't put a camper in the backyard. So.
Thank you, Matt. Natalie Bly.
Sure. So to address the houses that are run down or derelict, we do have a great system of staff in place, Priscilla and Nate, that do follow the ordinances. And every month in the city council agenda, there's a nuisance report that is published. And in that nuisance report, it says what work is being done, what houses are being monitored, what extensions they've been giving, what programs they've been offered to follow, and whether it's MMCDC's $15,000 loans, the HRA, Mojave services, all of those services are provided or referred to these homeowners so that they can address their issues and hopefully meet the requirements. And if there is a financial struggle for that homeowner, there are extensions that are granted for that, and that is also within that report. And so we're able to see all that and keep on top of it, and it is a struggle for many.
Thank you, Natalie. Celeste Copy.
Yeah, what great suggestions, right? Where this takes me is the why. So why someone wouldn't be putting money into their house, and again, it's really getting into the can't. So as we see property taxes going up and the prices of homes climbing so high, we know that a lot of people moved here and retired here throughout the pandemic. And so I would explore the making sure we are taking care of people who have grown up here and who worked here all their lives, and we're not running them out of their houses, right? So really exploring that, and maybe that's not a solution, but I would dig really deep into that. The other flip side, going off of, I like what's mentioned with Mojave and all the great services that they do provide. And with that, I think I'll close it.
Thank you, Celeste. Jay Durrani, the first speaker on this next question, what ideas do you have for the pavilion and Washington Avenue?
Not a good one to start out on. But, I know there's a interest to, once the half-cent sales tax expires upon complete payment of this deal, police department building, there's interest in expanding or extending that or re-extending it through legislative action and citizen voting, the half-cent sales tax to fund the pavilion, Westlake Drive, and also the arena projects. I was at the open house a month ago where they looked at these projects. I think the pavilion does need work. I don't like the idea of destroying it, destroying the historic value of it. I think there can be a new structure built with a similar floor plan or footprint, and retaining some of the architectural structures from the original pavilion into a new building that's more functional year-round for multiple uses. The Westlake project I have concerns about because the widening of the road, the Westlake Road, is going to take 6 feet of green space, of grassland on the lakeside. I'm not sure we want to destroy those trees. There was a lot of public comment about don't take green space, don't destroy more trees. That's what could happen if they proceed with this, and therefore I have to stop.
Thank you, Jay Durrani. Sean Carlson, what ideas do you have for the pavilion and Washington Avenue?
You know, Matt mentioned earlier that there's a lot of things infrastructure-wise that need attention, whether it's streets, whether it's buildings. You know, the pavilion and Washington Avenue are among them, right? My question would be, what has the greatest need? What needs the work the most? What's going to help our businesses and our residents the most? What's going to help drive increased tourism to bring additional money into our community? I mean, tourism is a staple of our community. So which projects are going to help us to really support our residents and our local businesses? I mean, without that, okay, I'll move it closer. I mean, I think that's really the key element we have to ask in all of this. Which are the things that are going to cost us the most? Which are the things that are going to benefit the most, and focus on those projects first. I'm not inherently opposed to the idea of extending the sales tax, but I want to see that it's for a good reason, that we've thought about this from a long-term perspective, that is going to keep our tax burden manageable over time, and that we're benefiting our community with the projects that we choose to do right now.
Thank you, Sean Carlson. Mike Stearns, what are your ideas?
So if I'm elected to city council, I hope I don't tick you off 92% of the time. That's my goal. But I think this could be the 8% time, because I'm not opposed to some pretty substantial changes to the pavilion. I love the history of it. I like that some things can be done in it. And in our 20 years, I can't tell you how many times I've been in that pavilion. But the opportunity in that space is pretty substantial, and I see things, people saying that it's private investors that want to do this, and I don't think it should be a private investment thing. I think it should be the city behind this making these improvements, and because we as citizens in Detroit Lakes really can benefit from having a much improved facility there. So I'm sorry to the 8%, but I do think most people think that it is a pretty good chance to really make something a real wow facility. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike Stearns. Matt Boki.
To be honest with you, I really don't like this question because you're asking for my ideas. It's not my pavilion. It's the community's pavilion, and that's what I heard when we had that RDG study. I heard everything from the pavilion's great, put a little some hot ashes down in the street, and the street's fine for another 100 years, all the way to I'm going to Max and we're getting sledgehammers tearing the pavilion down tonight. So somewhere in the middle might be the answer. My personal thoughts on that is at some point we need to stop putting money into something that's a sinking ship. And the reason I say that is the pavilion right now, from kitty corner in that building moves in the spring 8 inches. So we're popping windows, the structure's gone there. It's just on a floating slab that at some point we need to do something better instead of throwing money and into a losing structure. What that means, do we start over? Do we put new foundations down? That I don't know. I think it's a real opportunity for the city of Detroit Lakes to move forward. I think a year-round venue there would really benefit the community. I think that that's something that we have one wedding, maybe 2 weddings there. Maybe we double it and make it 4 weddings. Maybe we have a full kitchen to serve people in there. Maybe it's something we double the size and put the farmer's market out back underneath the shelter there. I know the trees. Everybody loves the trees on the beach, but to be honest, a lot of them are getting long in the tooth. 80% are ash that if we get a disease, that could wipe out those right there. That creates a lot of opportunities for some biodiversity moving forward. So a lot of different options. Bottom line, I want to hear from the community.
Thank you, Matt. Natalie Bly.
That was a great answer. But what I don't see for the pavilion is it being a full-blown event center, concert venue, whatever, but it is a sinking building. I was in there once during a water carnival storm, and I was walking through ankle-deep water in the north entrance. So what I think it needs to be is a year-round building instead of seasonal, because that building is out of use for 6 months out of the year, where it could be, when we talk about our tourism in that dollar, it could bring in 6 more months of events that we don't have down there by the lake. Expanding the road, that's going to allow for the bike trail, and we just recently we're in the process of a tree study to identify what trees we should be planting in case the disease comes through, so not all of our trees are wiped out in Detroit Lakes. So there's going to be quite a variety being planted. And the city's already in the process, or are being planted a number of trees in advance of the ones going to be removed. So that issue is being addressed currently. And I want a Ferris wheel. I want a Ferris wheel on Washington Avenue. Like, it could be like at Shields every day.
Oh, God. Okay, Celeste.
Now I want a Ferris wheel too. No, but seriously. And on the flip side, I kind of like this question. So who all read the letter to the editor by Carol? Carol, I forgot your last name, so if you're out there, it was very well written. And so there was a letter to the editor that described, there's a lot going on with the pavilion, and we should maybe stick to some of that historical integrity and not take over the full park, which I thought was a great idea, Carol. And so, like, really preserving the integrity of the park, not getting rid of green space, having that year-round, let's generate some revenue. That I can get excited about that. I'm going to use the rest of my time to talk about my relationship with the paper, because that's another reason why I'm in this seat right here is I love reading the paper. I love Detroit Lakes, and I have gel pens that I write on, right? So I'm like, let's get out of the house and stop writing on the paper and talk to people. And then in terms of that revenue question of how to fund all these crazy things going on, right? There are some unprecedented state and federal grants coming through the pipeline, one-time things, and I don't think we should be caught up on whether or not that's right. I think we should be caught up on how are we as Detroit Lakes going to take advantage of these opportunities in terms of grants coming through the pipeline to help pay for some of these projects going on, and so that we don't see another hike in the property taxes so much. And I think that's going to be really cool. So,
Thank you, Celeste. Jackie Boobold.
Thank you, Sharon. I'm not sure if I can add anything that hasn't been said, but I will tell you a little bit about where I fall on some of it. I agree we need to do something with the pavilion. I have such fond memories of the pavilion growing up here in Detroit Lakes, and so it's one of those things that makes us unique. There's some nostalgia there that I think we want to keep, but yet we don't want to keep pouring money into something that it's kind of what's the putting a Band-Aid on something that's never going to heal, right? And so we don't want to continue to just kind of put a few dollars here and a few dollars there. I think we really need to take some time and study how do we want to use the pavilion? What are some options of a multi-use, multi-purpose? How do we as current residents, tourists, how can we have this multi-use, multi-purpose facility? And then design it appropriately, but keep some of the nostalgia that, again, makes it unique. As far as the Westlake Drive project and the concern for the trees, we don't like to cut down trees, but trees die, trees get disease, trees get cut down. But if we can be purposeful of how we replace those, I think about Summit, for those of you that have lived here a long time, and when Summit Avenue was widened and they took out all those trees, and there was people hanging onto those trees, right? But now when you drive down Summit, it's beautiful. That canopy and the purposeful way in which the trees were planted, it's a beautiful street. And so sometimes those things, again, short term, there might be some pain, but long term, if we do it purposefully and we study and we get the input, like the others have said, I think we can come up with something really special and fantastic.
Thank you, Jackie. Okay, we had a little fun with some controversy. Let's get to this one, which is going to be kind of fun. Sean, you will be the first speaker on this issue.
Fun?
It could go either way.
Do you believe the city should plow the sidewalks? And
That had to be the first one.
would you advocate putting gates on the truck plows so driveways wouldn't get plugged up when they're plowing the streets?
Can you repeat the second half of that one more time for me?
I'll try. As I say, I just read them.
That's fine.
Okay. So do you believe the city should plow the sidewalks? And would you advocate putting gates on the truck plows so driveways wouldn't get plugged up when they're plowing the streets?
Well, I think this is a question of cost and benefit. This was a big topic of conversation in this year's city budget discussions. And I think the idea that the city will plow all of the sidewalks is, anecdotally, I think it's a great idea, right? Like, hey, all right, somebody's gonna plow the sidewalk, I can just walk on it, I don't have to worry about it. But then you think about the cost. What's the equipment that we need? Who's gonna do it? How long is it gonna take? Who do we have to hire to do this? As it stands now, the city spends a day plowing the sidewalks that they do plow for their own buildings. What about everything else? I think Sean from the Public Works indicated it would take at least 4 days, unless we hire people dedicated for that. Does the city want to take on the expense of the equipment and a full-time staff member just to plow the sidewalks? And what about community and engagement, right? Can we contribute to our own community by plowing or shoveling the sidewalk in front of our road? And I think there's also the question of, folks who struggle with, the ability. I think that's a way that we can contribute to our neighbors too. As for the gates on the plows, I guess, what does it cost and what does that do to the plowing environment for them? Does it slow us down? Because we got to clear our streets. And that's a tough one. I hate it when I have to do that, when I have to plow at that big heavy thing right after I got done, and I understand that. Can we make that work? Can we do it without negatively impacting the entire street work that's got to be done during a snowstorm? Thank you.
Thank you, Sean Carlson. Mike Stearns.
Yeah, I sat in on the same budget planning sessions and listened to Sean King talk about, they went through the math on trying to make this happen, and how do you add the staff? How do you justify the additional cost? But the staffing is probably the bigger thing. Do you have this many more staff members that are either part-time or because you don't employ them full-time to sit around and wait for the snow to fall? And I'm with Sean. I don't like getting out and plowing the driveway the second time when after the plow's gone by. But it's part of it's part of living in the Northland is how that's what I'm telling myself when it's 5:30 in the morning at least. But and I don't know about the cost about these gates. I am curious about the efficiency. How does it slow it down? Does it take them twice as long? Because there are a lot of people that have the stopwatch on them when the first snowflake falls as to when they're going to remove the snow from their from in front of their house too. So, I wish there were an easy answer. I don't think it's the city's responsibility at this point, except I am curious to know more about these gates, if you will.
Thank you, Mike Stearns. Matt Boke.
Sitting on the finance meeting, we had a good discussion about this and what we need to do. Sean King, our public works director, said, I started looking at equipment to do this, and he said the problem with city sidewalks is we have 4 foot, we got 5 foot, we got 6 foot wide sidewalks. So there isn't one piece of equipment that's going to take care of all that. He demoed a piece of equipment for $200,000 to do that. That's just the machinery to do that. Then you have to have labor to do it, time to do it. When you can get a new plow truck for $260,000 fitted to go, in my mind, where your dollar's best spent. And to me, that's a plow truck to help all of the community. To Sean's point too, he said it takes just the public sidewalks that's on city property, takes a full day to get that done as well. So to me, it just came down to a time and a budget issue where we could spend that. As far as these gates, I've never driven a snow plow. I don't know what that takes, but I know they do a heck of a job. With how many mailboxes they're going around, with how many parked cars in the street, that's a lot to keep track of a big truck, when to turn on the sander, when to lift the plow. I've done it in a residential plow truck, and that was enough for me. I do T-shirts, I don't do plowing. But that's something that we could at least look at and do. Gates sound like a great idea. One of the first things that pops in my head is, well, now do you have a big pile at the end of the driveway that now you got kind of bump outs, the plow has to work around there? I'd like to know more about it before I give you an answer.
Natalie Bly.
So yes, we did have about 8 budget meetings in August, and this was one of the topics when they asked each city council member what we would like to discuss, give the top 3 items. There was a few of us that wanted to discuss snow plows. And when it comes down to it, it's taxes. It's raising that tax levy every year, and we have to look at things like whether we want a new fire chief to maintain our current fire department, because it's a hard time finding the volunteers anyways. So it was going through some of those and what do we need and what do we want, and that's kind of how it broke down. And then we also listened to our staff, Sean King, who called 15 different cities, and 13 of them don't plow the sidewalks. Only 2 of them did, and they were smaller communities. So we have to also listen to that. What are our other communities doing around us? And we have the option. If we can't do it as a city, we are full of volunteers in this community. The day that we decided not to do it, I emailed my church and said, is this something we can look at in the future? Reminding people during these snowstorms to go out and plow your neighbor's driveway. Yes, this is the city and city council, but what else can we do as a city? Well, we can reach out to our local resources. So I would encourage everybody to do that and help out a neighbor.
Thank you, Natalie. Celeste Coffey.
Yeah. So we can all get a good giggle out of talking about snowplows so much, but it's a reality when you can't get to work and you have like 4 feet at the end of your driveway and you're like, okay, what are we going to do here? I already have my work clothes on. But the federal funds coming through, I think that would be a great opportunity. There are hundreds of programs, and I'm guessing we could find one that's going to fit a snowplow. I hope so. And during listening, I was too at some of these budget meetings, and it's a complicated discussion because, like, how do you start picking and choosing the sidewalks you're going to plow? Like, that's really difficult. But I do think we can push that forward, and instead of having such a black and white answer of like yes or no, things like safe routes to school were brought up, so I definitely think those should be put on the list to be plowed. I think we need to realize that, like, for example, my grandparents can't, deal with the snow that falls on, their property, much less stuff that's pushed up by the snowplow. So seeing the hundreds of dollars, amounting maybe thousands even, that people who just physically can't plow their snows and piled on by the city, that's something that the city's pushing onto their property, it needs to be examined. So I'd say, let's put it on our wish list and really activate what we can do as a city. I agree that maybe tax money isn't the answer for this, but again, federal, state funding, so.
Thanks, Celeste. Jackie Bubolz.
Thanks, Sharon. I too was at that budget meeting where this was addressed, and so I won't add anything that's already been said about really looking at the cost and benefit of being able to do this. But what I would, and again, we expect people to mow their lawn. We don't help them mow their lawn. There's an expectation about when you have property and how you maintain it. So I would add that. But then I would also add you have to look at the bigger picture. If we were to buy the equipment and hire the staff to be able to do the snow removal, then what else within the budget would we have to reduce? Or would we have to increase taxes? So you can't, we shouldn't look at each one on its own, but yet part of the bigger picture of the whole city budget. And what's the balance between the needs and the wants, things we can control and things we can't control.
And Jay DeRaney.
Having grown up in Grand Forks where we were required to shovel our sidewalks, I sympathize with the people who have the heavy snow to lift and the 3-foot plow edge at the end of the driveway. I do sympathize with them. However, once again, I think it also is, as everybody else alluded to, a cost benefit. How are we going to use our tax dollars? It does provide an opportunity to give goodwill to your neighbor, to help shovel the neighbor in need. We did that all the time in Grand Forks. But another extrapolation of that is, if we're going to do the sidewalks, are we going to mow the green space, the grass between the sidewalk and the street, the boulevard or the berm? What other services are we going to provide for independent or individual owners, landowners or house owners in DL? I think this is one that we have to look at the costs and how are we going to use our tax dollars.
Thank you, Jay DeRaney. This will be the last question for the city council members, and there's been a request that as you finished your comments, would you mention the race that you are running for, the position you're running for. And the question will begin with Mike Stearns. The city council's chief responsibility is to set strategies for the city. What strategic initiatives would you push for?
Well, it probably circles back to the things we first discussed. How do we look forward to the future to continue to make it a welcoming community? How do we provide the housing that's needed? How do we update the housing that we have in stock already? How do we bring in the businesses? How do we keep it? When we arrived 20 years ago, I would say this was probably a little more of a touristy town. But the growth of the industry has been great to see. But I love the fact that it's remained a touristy town, and I hope it does, till the day I die or move from here, one of the two. So I think that's probably my continued vision and hope for the city, and I would like to be part of that. I am running for Ward 2.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for having us today.
Thank you, Mike. Matt Boki.
I guess there's kind of two guiding principles I use looking at decisions through the past 7 years of being on the council and looking forward, is leave it better than you found it. For my two kids, I want it better than what they took it in as. When I found it, leave it better than it was. Two is get busy growing or get busy dying. There's a lot of towns on Highway 10 that you see a lot of stagnance, a lot of complacency. I think DL has done a great job to position itself to keep growing and looking to the future. To me, that's something that excites me. The city council shouldn't be looking at what's going on in 6 months or 8 months. We should be looking out 5, 10, 15 years, because that comes pretty darn quick. And with that comes fiscal planning to get that done. So that's kind of what excites me, is that long-term plan to leave it better than you found it. I'm running for Ward 3. I wish my opponent was here tonight. I think competition makes everybody sharper. So, but Ward 3, Matt Boki, thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Natalie Bly.
Well, I think many people have heard this slogan that DL is a great place to live, work, and play. And I believe that statement. However, to live here, we need to continue to address that affordable housing option, and those strategic initiatives. To work here, we need to be able to provide daycare to our members. I know with my baby, it took me over 6 months to do the juggling act before I found a spot for him. And then we need to grow. We need to continue to grow, but to do that, that live, work, and play, those are the two options that we need to address. And then we can invite more friends to come and play with us when we address the housing and daycare issues. And we also sit down and do the strategic planning sessions, and we have many exciting things happening in this community, so I encourage you all to follow the city website because they are in our notes. And I am running for Alderman at Large.
Thank you, Natalie. Celeste Copy.
I finally got down the order. I was like, oh, that's me next. Only took all night. But I would just lean into the strategies. Of course, I really like the housing, childcare, that three-legged stool that's thrown out there. And again, this labor crisis is not going to get easier. And what I said at the beginning of making this place really attractive, we are doing a fabulous job right now, and we even need to level up because it's going to be something that affects all the cities around us. Whether it comes to housing, childcare, or getting that extra part on the snowplow, I just want to really lean on creative financing, right? Public-private partnerships. Like, for example, what happened with the parks, right? Going around town, playground equipment is really expensive. We saw some great fundraising and different partnerships to make that happen. I really think we need to continue to lean into that sort of financing. Other than that, I don't think I mentioned my job. I work as a community planner at West Central Initiative, which is a community foundation and regional development organization. I'm really, really excited to be here, and I'm so excited to answer these questions. Thank you so much to all of my fellow candidates, the League of Women Voters, the police department, all of you here who care. I really care, and it's so fun to see that you all really care because we love our community and each other so much. And I have 15 seconds left. I forgot what I was going to say. But I am running for Alderwoman at Large, so anyone in the city limits, come out and vote. So,
Thank you, Celeste. Jackie Buboltz.
Thank you, Sharon. I think the strategies around growth and remaining relevant, and what I mean by that is that if we are going to keep and attract people for new business or for business, for workforce, we need to make Detroit Lakes different and special so that when they're looking at a place to have their business, if they're looking at a place to come and work, that it makes it unique enough that they're attracted to be here. And so that growth and being relevant, continuing all the really great projects that we have, but also making sure we have the infrastructure to support it and doing so incrementally so that we don't have like a huge tax levy because we didn't maintain the streets for the last 5 years. I think about our community down the road, Perham, and their tax levy that they're expecting. And I just want to be fiscally responsible here in Detroit Lake so that we are we don't see those huge tax increases, but over time, yes, will taxes increase? That's the reality, right? But can we make sure we're maintaining, and so we don't have some big, huge project that's really going to make it financially difficult for us as taxpayers?
Thank you, Jackie. Jay DeRaney.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm running for Alderwoman at large. Thanks, Tom.
I think we have to look at this in a short term and a long term. In the short term, we have some concerns with the fire department, the fire chief, volunteers to the fire department. You know, as everybody knows, the number of volunteers of fire department is dwindling, so that's an issue. We have to maintain a strong and respected police department, which I feel we do have. There's a shortage of police officers, police officer candidates in the academies, and there are going to be some retirements in the next couple of years and more after that. So I think we need to be aware of that. Also, once again, I alluded to in the past, the streets, maintaining and building new streets. I think we need to be cognizant of that. In the long term, I think also we have to look at, do we want to just push the tourism agenda? Yes, we need tourism, but we also need to look long-term at the housing and the childcare, the job development, good-paying jobs. And unfortunately, some of the tourism jobs are not the best-paying jobs for people to buy homes or build homes. So I think we need to look at that long-term. Tourism in addition to long-term, good-paying job growth.
Thank you, Jay DeRaney. Sean Carlson.
You know, I'm going to echo what
I'm
Matt.
sorry, what position are you running
Oh,
for?
go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Alderman at large.
Thank you. Sean?
Thank you. I'm going to echo what Matt said. You know, I think the long-term strategy, thinking out what is this impact going to be in 10, 15, 20, 30 years, that's a really key element to what the city council does. That type of thinking, having the plan, sticking with it, is what prevents us from having a proposed 30% tax levy like our neighbors. I think we really need to capitalize on the way that our world is changing as well. COVID brought the work from home phenomenon to a whole new height. Working in telecommunications, I see a lot of people who have moved out into what they would call small communities. I don't consider this a small community. This is a growing, thriving community. But there is an opportunity here, and that opportunity is more than just residential. We've talked about housing a lot. Well, in order to increase housing, in order to build and have those jobs, we need to increase industry too. I agree with what Jay said. The opportunity to have more steady year-round. Tourism's always going to be a staple, fundamental element of our economy. We have to support that. We also need to continue to foster opportunities to grow. And also to do this, we need to form relationships and have good working relationships with our neighbors, the townships around us, to think about how the city will grow and how we can create affordable housing into the future. So we don't get stuck in situations where we have to grow and those residents are stuck with huge bills because there wasn't a good plan and a good cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Well, that concludes the
Oh,
city.
I'm sorry. I
Yes,
forgot.
I'm sorry.
I'm running for Ward 1.
I'm sorry, Sean. This concludes the questions for the city council. I think you'll agree we have some excellent candidates, and please give them a round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
5 minutes and we're going to go.
Okay. We'll resume the meeting in 5 minutes, and we'll talk about the school board.
Was Mr. Wold contacted?
Oh,
No,
many times.
no, he did not.
No, but how many times did you contact him?
By phone or and just no response.
Thank you very much for moderating. I sure appreciate it. Thank you, thank you.
Sorry, I mispronounced your name about 5
Like I said, I've been called worse, so don't worry about it.
Thanks, Sharon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, thank you both. You did a great job.
I know, either way.
chairs over here? You can. I'll try not to knock it off.
Sounds like a deal.
She's here. She's in the orange. How are you?
Hello, you are Mary Sharonson. Good to meet you.
Okay, is everybody? This is everybody. We are missing two. We're missing three. Oh, you're here.
Oh, but you got the wrong name. I'm Nikki, but my name is opposite. I'm Nikki
I'm guessing they just printed it. I'm guessing they just printed it.
That's too bad.
We'll put you all down.
Can I grab one of those chairs? Nikki got her name changed. Do you have the wrong one? No. Oh.
I can grab you.
I think she wanted us to all be down there. Oh, well, because she said the camera angle was better for down there. Okay, got it.
No, she's got mics. We've got mics the whole way because initially we would have needed all those tonight.
Okay.
But there's two people missing. We had Del Jaskins and Erica are not coming.
Right.
So that's correct. She declined. And Erica has to contact. We are good to I'm not familiar with
Okay, are we about ready to begin? Can we get started? We have a lot of issues to cover. Yeah. If I could whistle.
Get started. If you want to fill in on the empty seats, you can. There's 2 empty seats up front.
Thank you. We are about to begin the League of Women Voters candidates meeting for the Detroit Lakes School Board. As I mentioned before, League does not take positions on candidates or parties. The questions will be addressed to each of the candidates, and they will have 1.5 minutes to speak on each question. I'm going to just quickly review the timing with the ladies at the front here. You'll get a notice when you have 30 seconds left of your 1.5 minutes, thusly. And then when you have just about 1 sentence left, you'll get a 15-second card, and then you get the real message of, yeah, okay, stop. Yes. And then if you don't stop, oh dear. Yes, that's serious.
Stop now.
It's like a
All right. let's begin. The protocol tells us that we will start with our incumbent, April. And April, if you would tell us a bit about yourself and what characteristics and experiences make you qualified for this job.
Sounds good. I prepared a statement just to make sure I got everything in, and I just want to thank the League of Women Voters for organizing tonight's format. Thank you for those of you that are in attendance and those that will view this recorded event online. My husband and I have lived in Detroit Lakes for 10 years, and we have 2 children that proudly attend Detroit Lakes Public Schools and have since we moved here. My son is a senior at the high school, which is sad, and my daughter is just starting her middle school experience. By trade, I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I've been fortunate in that area because it affords me an opportunity to serve my community. I currently am on the school board and also volunteer in our schools. I'm an active participant of my children's various activities, and I also enjoy being involved in the Detroit Lakes Public Education Foundation and on the DLCCC and Holmes Theater boards. I hold a 4-year degree in communications and a business minor. It has been a joy to use these skills as a voice for all students and employees of Detroit Lakes Public Schools. Part of a communication degree is also listening, and I'm always available to listen to the people of our district. I am running for re-election to continue the positive path we are paving. In 4 years, we've updated our buildings with secure entrances, opened a Laker Transitions building, launched a new website, completed a strategic plan, and have the Academies program fully running. Our district remains on alert for areas of improvement and innovative opportunities to help Detroit Lakes be the best school in the state. A vibrant school is an asset to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, April Thomas. Ethan Walls.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting us this evening, the Chamber of Commerce, and also the Detroit Lakes Police Department for hosting us in their amazing facility. My name is Ethan Walls. I've been born and raised here in Detroit Lakes, graduated with the class of 2018. And after high school, I went off to South Dakota State University for a year studying agricultural education. I was a hopeful minor in special education. But in the background, I had a job here in Detroit Lakes through an internship that I had at Detroit Lakes High School with Olander Bus Service, which is one of our school transportation companies here in our district, where I worked with special needs students on our special education routes, and then eventually became a bus driver myself. And so after my first year of school, I decided to come back to our community and serve in a bigger role at Olander Bus as our Director of Safety and Training, which is still the line of work that I'm doing today. And so I thank you guys all for coming out tonight. And a few things that make me a unique candidate is I've served on a few different committees here at the school with our Academy Advisory Committee, the Chemical Health and Dependency Committee, and then also have been to several school board meetings to keep myself active in our school district and in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ethan Walls. Ashley Schoenberger.
Hi, thank you. I'm Ashley Schoenberger, and thank you to the League of Women Voters and to everybody that came out. I wish not so many people had come out because I'm crazy nervous, but I am a lifelong Laker. I went to Callaway Elementary School way back in the day and graduated Detroit Lakes High School class of 2003. I live here now with my husband and my 11 children. I have a background. I was raised by 2 teachers. My mom taught first grade, and my dad taught EBD. And I have worked in EBD classrooms, I've worked in Head Start classrooms, and most recently, I ran a family child care out of my home for the last 13 years. I recently closed my child care to adopt 3 more children, making my total adopted children through foster care 6. And I feel that I have kind of a hand on the pulse of a lot of different communities in our neighborhood, in our town, and in our district. And I would really like to be a voice for the different families, for the big families, for the foster families, for the people that have special needs in our school system, people who have been overlooked and maybe underheard as of late. And I am so excited. I love our schools, I love our district, and I just am excited for anything that I can do to help it.
Thank you. Ashley Schoenberger. Mary Rauter.
Okay. I was glad that they didn't ask us to stand up because it wouldn't have done any good for me to stand up. Yeah, thanks for having us. I also, people that know me would not guess that I'm nervous to speak in front of all you. I also born, raised, and graduated from Detroit Lakes and moved to go to Augsburg College and earn my K-6 elementary degree and later on my K-12 reading specialist degree. In the meantime, I taught for 10 years in St. Paul schools and always knew that I wanted to come back here, and I needed to convince my husband that, it was up to him when we were ready to move back here. He's a big city guy, but it didn't take much to convince him that that Detroit Lakes is the place to be to raise our two kids. Our daughter is in 5th grade, and our son is in 8th grade. Let's see. So when we did move back to Detroit Lakes, or I moved back to Detroit Lakes and he was new to it, there weren't any teaching jobs here. And so, I opened my own pre-K so that I could participate in our school district, see how I could benefit the school district that way. And I'm really connected with early child family education and into the elementary schools and the teachers there. And I'm on the advisory board with the academy model, and I just really like to be in tune with the different levels of education and fantastic education we offer here.
Thank you, Mary Rauter. Susie Felt.
Hello, my name is Susie Felt, and I am not from Detroit Lakes, but I've called Detroit Lakes and loved Detroit Lakes for the last 16 years. I've never ran for elected position. I am nervous, like a couple of the other ones up here. I've never ran for anything that's been elected, but one time I was voted for most school spirit, so I got that. So I live here with my husband, and we were married here in 2009, and we have 3 children now that are all in the Detroit Lakes Public Schools. I'm running for school board because I believe in public service. I love serving. One of the groups that I'm in is Rotary, and that's service above self, and I just truly believe in that. I'm running as a parent, a small business owner, a person with a strong faith, a person who cares deeply about children and wants our children and community to be successful. I'm also a supporter of teachers and staff who serve our children. For the last 2 school years, I've been subbing in the schools, and I really enjoy getting to be in the schools and kind of seeing behind the scenes. And yeah, I just really enjoy supporting anything that has to do with the schools. I'm motivated mostly by the best interests of our kids, and I want our school district to just be the best and the success of our students to be at the forefront of what we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Susie Felt. Mickey Olkeson.
Had a name change.
I'm sorry.
I figured everybody probably knows me as Mickey. I had put my name Michelle on some things, and people were wondering who that is. So, Mickey Olkeson. I'm the senior citizen of the group, and I am one who is not have short on words. I've always been long on words, but like everybody else, I'm extremely nervous because the panel before us running for city council was so articulate that, wow. But I am running mostly because I have people that have the confidence in me and have asked me to consider doing it, so they must believe that I have something that I can bring to the table. I'm a mother of 5, expecting my 14th grandchild. I have been around kids all my life. I was an employee at one time for the Detroit Lakes Public School System. See my business manager there, Dick Lendine. I was the community education secretary at the time when early childhood family education was first introduced into our community. I have been involved volunteer-wise through Becker County 4-H for over 20-some years. At one time, I moved from volunteer status to being the program coordinator, and 4-H is the largest youth development organization in the world. With the characteristics, and I guess I have a college degree if that matters, but I'm going to articulate what was just said by Susie, that I care, and that's why I'm considering doing this and taking on this responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Mickey Olkeson. Now, the next question, the first speaker will be Ethan Walls. Ethan, what are the most important challenges facing Detroit Lake schools, and how do you propose to address them?
Thank you, Sharon. So I think that our school district, we have a great community here, a great school district. We have great staff in our buildings, great administration, and great families. We do. I was fortunate to go through the public school system here in DL, and I had a great experience. And I want to bring that back in a different capacity, and that would be with school board. But one of the biggest things that I see going forward as an issue is our staffing shortages and the pool of staff that we have to choose from. I see that as a big issue. We're starting to see it in some of our more, in the Minneapolis, St. Paul area, we're seeing large staffing shortages, and this means larger class sizes and cutting of different programs because we simply don't have enough teachers, not enough people that are certified to teach these courses. And I think that Detroit Lakes is a staple for people to come and not only begin their teaching career, but continue to teach here. So I think as our school district continues, we need to come up with more ways to attract young people to our community that they can feel welcomed and they can feel like this is a place that they can call home and teach our future Lakers for years to come. So that is, I think, the biggest issue that I see coming forward, and I'm very welcome to suggestions on how to continue with that effort.
Thank you. Ashley Schoenberger, the most important challenges, and how do you propose to address them?
I definitely agree with Ethan that the staffing shortages is a huge issue, and I don't know how we could go about solving that, but I know that I can be very good at working together with people to find creative solutions, to come up with different ideas, to bring in those professionals, those teachers who can really speak to our kids. As a parent, one of the very few issues I've had with our district, because it is just amazing, is I know we are lacking a little bit in the special education department. And I think that would be a good place to focus some attention on, and that and communication, especially at the middle school level. It's so hard. These kids are so vulnerable at this age and at this level. And as a parent, I know I am one of those annoying parents who emailed my kid's kindergarten teacher on the first day because I missed him so much. And I like to be very involved. And I think there are a lot of people that want to know what's going on. So to find ways to make sure we're communicating with the parents, with the families, with the community, not only what's going on with the school board and with the district, but what's going on in the schools, in the classrooms, and with the kids, because the schools are there for the kids. And I think that needs to be the focus.
Thank you, Ashley. Mary Rauter.
Okay. I'm interested in being an elected board member because I want to sustain, as the first people I've already had, sustain the positive and supportive, innovative district that we live and benefit from. I know that our schools and our teachers differentiate for the children, being in connection with them. I believe in the teachers who put in the hard work each day, and I know that the actual, the classroom teacher retention rate is quite low, or quite high. It's low to get teachers. It's quite high. It's their support staff that I think that helps make everything go around too. But anyways, I really think that. And I want to be part of a board that is a cheerleader for teachers and kids and helps support exciting and energizing environments for those that work and in supporting families that send their kids and trust their kids with us.
Thank you, Mary. Susie Felt.
Some of the biggest issues that I feel are facing our school district are, I'm going to go along with that, but was teacher retention and staffing. I think just in the few years that I've had kids in the schools, I've seen quite a few teachers leave, and they're probably for a variety of reasons. But I feel like maybe there's extra requirements put on them, and maybe pay could be an issue. I'm not sure, and I don't know exactly all of the things that the school board can support these teachers in, but just helping these great teachers that have come into our district stay here, and providing that support. Other challenges that I see are like mental health and social, emotional, and behavioral stuff, just what support there is and where we can increase that support. It's just in our world today, I feel like there's just so much more mental health and behavioral challenges that we have to deal with, and how do we support the students? How do we support the staff that are helping the students? How do we support the teachers? And so on. And then communication, I think, is a huge one. Kind of what Ashley said too, is just the communication between parents, between schools. Everyone's heard it takes a village to raise up kids, and a village requires a lot of communication. So,
Thank you, Susie Felt. Mickey Okeson.
Well, I agree with everything that's been said so far, but I think that a challenge that our district faces, and all districts are going to face, there's some things coming in from the outside and some things are still hanging in the air. We don't know how the Title IX ruling is going to, they're looking at it at the national level. We have this curriculum issue in the state of Minnesota on the social studies. There's a lot of concern about what's being written into it. It's had its third revision, and that's going to be voted on. This teaching licensure issue is huge. And for some teachers might be looking at the requirements that are there and say it's great, and then there's other ones that are looking at and saying this, then I'm out. And that may create more of a teaching shortage, depending on how that turns out. And some of those things, I mean, right now we don't have any control over those, but they are going to definitely affect us. And another thing that I think is how do we, I guess the communication issue, bringing the parents involved into, I guess, all aspects of it. And I think that that's something that we struggle with a lot, is that it's a few people, a lot of times doing a lot of the volunteer work and whatever else, and this isn't all up to the school board or the staff or whatever. It's how can we as a board bring the parents on board to be part of the solving the problems and whatever that we have. So thank you.
Thank you. April Thomas.
I'm going to take the issue more down back to a local level, and really in our school district, we're looking at attendance issues post-COVID. I think that put a wrench in a lot of people's lives. Getting kids back in the seats, if they're not there, they cannot learn, and we're working on some initiatives to get the kids back in the schools. Everyone talks about the learning gap. Again, post-COVID, kids are struggling to get caught back up, and we are working on initiatives, extra improvement time, things in the high school and in the middle school that will help kids get back up to speed where they need to be. I definitely agree mental health is an issue. As a school district, we put that a high priority. We're really working hard on changing our philosophy of education and putting a high importance on relationships between teachers and kids, and teachers aware of what is going on with students' lives. There's a new program at the school, the BAR Initiative, that really looks at the reason why a kid might be struggling. Might not have anything to do with the classroom. It might be a home life, and if the teacher understands what's going on there and communicates with the parent, they can help support the student in the classroom. And then finally, I just think we've got great buildings, but we need to start looking at our Lincoln Education Center and what we can do for our littlest Lakers.
Thank you. The next question, the first speaker will be Ashley Schoenberger. With school construction projects finally complete or almost, what do you see as the next project for the school district to tackle?
I would have to go first on this one. I think more important than starting a big new project is making sure that we maintain the millions and millions and millions of dollars that we just spent on our big schools. I've been in the schools and they are amazing and they're beautiful. And I think, like a lot of the city council people were talking about, we need to think long term, and instead of biting off another big project, let's make sure we're focusing on keeping up our buildings, on putting money aside to keep up our buildings, so we're not 5-10 years down the road having to have another referendum battle so that we can build a school because we didn't save money to side the middle school again. And I don't know, and I'm sure that it is probably a much more complicated issue than all of that, but I don't really have any big plans or big ideas for what new great projects need to be done. I really think that as a board and as a district, we should focus a lot more on just maintaining and taking care of the investments we've already made.
Thank you, Ashley. Mary Rotter, what do you see as the next project for the school district to tackle?
Well, I know well enough that when it comes to education or children, finances are tricky and they are not black and white. And so, I do think that it's our job to look at what can be spent, what can be responsible, how can you serve the most students and the most teachers and the most families with what is safe. I am an early ed person, and so yes, I think supporting the littlest kids in our communities so that they can be ready for kindergarten and save the bottom line in education by helping them be ready for school. There's a lot of studies that the more ready kids are when they come to K-12, the more money that a district is going to save. But I really think that's something that I'd like to learn about, is how our school finances work, and so that we can make informed decisions to move forward.
Thank you, Mary. Susie Felt.
That was quick. I didn't realize I was next. Okay. So next big project, I guess I don't really have anything necessarily in mind for a next big project. I really appreciate all the projects that have already been done. I have gone on the school tours and been enjoying them, and I think the referendum that was passed was great, because look at what we have now. I also want to say that, I'm also for early childhood. I think it's very important. Lincoln Ed is definitely something that is, something that's not a big, beautiful thing to look at, or a small, beautiful thing to look at. And so if we're going to continue educating our littlest Lakers there, I would definitely support putting some kind of dollars into that and upgrading. And, the gym there is I just think how great all of that space there could be used if there were some improvements that were done.
Thank you, Susie. Mickey Okeson, next project.
Well, I guess the thought that came to mind, and maybe it's a strange one, that is, does a project necessarily have to be like a building project or something like that? And what comes to mind is maybe even planning. This is kind of strange, but I just happened to read about the United Way event that was just held at the pavilion, and maybe a project would be just planning events, having more opportunity for people to come into the schools outside of sporting events and that type of thing, and give people kind of a breather on to, what are they spending money on now? And just have, because I think that parents come to events and things like that, and I think it's awesome that they allow us senior citizens to come to sporting activities free, but there's a lot of other, it's great, a lot of other things that maybe that we could do to get, getting the families and parents and grandparents and whatever into the schools for, I don't know what it would look like. But I mean, like I said, a project doesn't have to be a building. I think it just bringing together community and getting everybody behind whatever is going on there. So and have that gym is so amazing. I love going to watch sporting events there. I mean, maybe we can think of some creative things that we can do in there. So,
thank you, Mickey. April Thomas.
Definitely Lincoln Education Center. That's the building that's left that we need to take a look at. And if anyone's been in the admin building, you'll know that's an interesting paneled gem. But definitely our Lincoln Education Center. And in terms of finances and taking care of the buildings that we have now, the way school finances work, you have to set aside and get money from the state for long-term facilities maintenance. So we don't have to worry about taking care of the buildings that we have. We're a very financially accountable district. So it would be in our best interest of our students to take a look at Lincoln Education Center. And I also, I'm going to piggyback off what was just said about events and looking at ways to get people in the building. There are opportunities galore. We are always looking for volunteers. We are always looking for parents. There's PTOs. There's plenty of things to be involved in. And anyone who took advantage of all the tours we did of the buildings, I'm grateful that you came in to see what we've done with your dollars. And we work really hard to do what's best for kids in the best spaces possible, because when kids feel safe and comfortable and appreciative of their surroundings, they learn better.
Thank you, April. Ethan Walls.
So I'm going to take this question kind of a step back, and we talk about, building projects. What can we do, as far as expanding our school district or making more spaces available for students? I'm going to take it a step back and really look at the big picture. How do we better utilize the facilities that we just invested millions of dollars into? How do we utilize those facilities better? For example, I would really strongly want to take a look at our level 4 programming for the students that we send to other school districts because we either don't have the space or we don't have the accredited staff. And maybe that's more of a staffing issue than anything, but I'd like to take a look at that as well. And how do we bring those students back into district? We spend thousands of dollars a year transporting those students to other districts. Maybe even providing curriculum for those students to use while they're in those programs. So I'd like to look at that a little bit closer. And it was just brought up at our last school board meeting on Monday, the greenhouse space that's going to be going up at the high school. That's an ongoing project with permitting, a lot of different moving parts to that. But I think that space is going to be a great space that we've already put and invested our money into. And so we're going to see that space come to fruition for all students in our district. And then also finding out creative ways, and this is a community thing, how we can utilize our land better that we currently have on Tower Road that the school purchased a few years back when we were looking at the referendum issues. How do we use that space a little bit better to benefit our students to explore careers in?
Thank you. And Mary Rotter will be the first speaker on the next question. How successful has the Academy model been? And can you give an example of some of its success?
Heck yeah. I am so glad I'm the first one on this. I am highly involved in the Academy model through the Human Services Pathway. I'm so excited for Cole to participate that in ninth grade next year. Excuse me. Just this year, this is really exciting, but just this fall, the Human Services Pathway is offering a Child Development Associate. And it's so exciting because it hits on what all the city council members were talking about childcare and early education. And the answer really is to get high school kids excited about education and early education, and they can acquire this in their senior, in their junior and senior years. The fantastic thing about it is that our high school was already ahead of the game and didn't even know it. And we already had all the coursework. And so with a few other pieces, we're able to offer it. And that just goes to show on all the other pathways. I just think about the needs that are going to be met from a variety and all the kids. And they are just going to be successful and contributing citizens. It's so awesome.
Thank you, Mary. Susie Felt, how successful has the Academy model been? And can you give an example?
Thank you. I love your passion, Mary.
I know it's going to happen.
The Academy model. I know a little bit about it. I don't know tons about it. I know that it is a great thing. How I've been involved a little bit throughout the years before the Academy model even started was doing interviews for ninth graders. And that was just kind of like a step in that direction. Now that so much more of the kids, picking out a career path that they want to go into. I personally think that would be so difficult as a ninth grader to think, oh, what do I maybe want to do for the rest of my life? But what a great opportunity for them to learn a little bit, and then for them to, maybe they decide it's not for them, and they go and choose a different model to go with. I think the Academy model, just preparing them for the real world, one of the things that went to the school board meeting a couple nights ago was an example of a child not knowing how to make a phone call to an employer and taking that child and showing them, for an appointment or something like that, and giving them that real world task that they need to do, because it's a different world now and they're used to texting and stuff. So.
Thank you, Susie. Mickey Okeson.
Well, I don't know a lot about the academy model, but I likewise was at the school board meeting the other night, and I think what has evolved from the school to work program that was initiated when my second son was in high school, we now call the academy model. And I thought, well, there's so many more pieces that have been added to that. And I remember at the time when they started the school to work program, which was, like I said, was new at that time, how much, actually that saved my son. I don't know if he would have graduated, but having that, getting out of that classroom and going, having hands-on experience at Audubon Engineering is what he needed. And that's what I see that this academy model is doing likewise, because not every child is suited to sit in a classroom from 8 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon. And an example that they cited the other night at the school board meeting, which I thought was awesome, is not only the kids are learning, but kids are teaching adults. And what they shared with us is that Lake Shirts had some kind of a machine that a few years ago our students were trained in using, and now they have one over at the high school, and that someone's new that's working at Lake Shirts had to come and learn from the student how to use that machine. And how awesome is that? And especially because, especially with electronics and computers and stuff, kids learn so quickly, and so I thought that was a really neat example. So,
Thank you, Mickey. April Thomas.
I absolutely love the academies. We've gone from using tests and asking kids how smart are they, to how are they smart. And the academy model looks at getting kids college and career ready, where not everybody is destined or needs to go to a four-year college to make a living and have a wonderful life. And I think that's a dramatic shift from where we were in education for a long time. There are amazing jobs out there that aren't a four-year college degree job. The academy also teaches 21st century skills that Mickey touched on. It also, in 9th grade, kids take a very comprehensive test that intersects their aptitudes, things that they're good at, with things that they personally find interesting, so that that's their abilities. The two things intersect. Prior to taking this, my son would have said he would be an electrical engineer. He's good at math. Those things come easily. That just seemed the path to go. After taking his 9th grade science class, he realized that his aptitudes were there for the science, but his abilities and what would fill his heart bucket is actually helping people. And because of that, through the academies, he's taken a CNA course and is now working over at Ecumen and will continue on in the medical field. So what we're not asking kids to choose a career in 9th grade, but we're giving them exposure to the possibilities, and it's really, really amazing.
Thank you, April. Ethan Walls.
Well, piggybacking on what all these ladies have already said, I can't say enough great things about the academy model and how it's progressed so far. I just missed the mark my senior year. That was the first year they implemented the academy model, but at that point in time, it wasn't really up and going for upperclassmen. It was more geared towards our freshman class. So I missed it. Wish I would have had that opportunity. But there's a lot of great things going on over there at the high school. The staff has bought into it. Our administration's grabbed it by the horns and is just going with it. And they're doing a lot of really amazing things with that program. And me personally, I'm a part of the production pathway as well, kind of more geared towards the agricultural sector of the production pathway. And there's a lot of great communication, collaboration going on with our community. Our community is getting involved in what our schools are teaching our future employees, our future business owners of our community, and that's a great thing to see. And then the final remark I want to make on it is, I don't think our students are afraid to make decisions anymore. I think they feel empowered that they can make a decision, and if it doesn't work, they can go back to the drawing board, they can try something else, because I think that's a huge thing that's going to happen in life. Not everything's always going to work the first time, but we can go back and we can take a look at other options. And I think that's this academy model is really promoting that college ready, career ready, and finally life ready.
Thank you, Ethan. Ashley Schoenberger.
I, like everybody else, love the academy model. I was a little skeptical about it at first when one of my daughters was going into 9th grade, and I went to the orientation, and they were talking about these pathways and being career ready and being college ready, and I'm like, okay, but why are you having, 9th graders decide what they're going to do in the future? But then as they explained it more, I just saw how awesome it was, that you're not locking yourself into this thing. I remember in like 10th grade taking an aptitude test like the one they take, probably far less comprehensive, and deciding that I wanted to be this whatever I wanted to be. And then later I'm 2 years into college and I look at my mom and I'm like, I don't want to anymore. What am I supposed to do? I've known since I was 15 that this is what I wanted to do. And my mom looked at me and said, I wouldn't let a 15-year-old decide what I was going to do with the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And that's not what this is. So for anybody who's confused at it, that's so not what this is. What this is my 15-year-old daughter went to get a job. And she had an interview, and she struggles more with anxiety than anybody I've met in my life. But she walked into that interview ready and confident, and she got that job. And I just can't say enough good things about this academy model and what it is and what it's going to do for our kids.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to the next question, and the first speaker will be Susie Feld. How would you respond to a parent who wants the district to limit access to or remove books from the school library or classroom?
Okay, respond to a parent, is that what the question
Yes.
was? Sorry, okay. Well, I love books, and I appreciate books, so to take books out of schools kind of tugs at my heart a little bit. I guess, being on the school board, you are a voice of the community, so you need to listen to parents, you need to listen to community members and what their thoughts and viewpoints are. So I would start out by asking the parent, what their reasoning was behind it and what are their concerns and if they're legitimate, and, actually listen to what their viewpoints are. I think technology is an awesome thing, but I think good old-fashioned books are also an awesome thing.
Thank you. Okay, the Mickey Okeson.
Well, I likewise love books. I'm a reader. But I do believe that, as Susie said, that I would want to know why the parent had some objection to the books. I think if anybody's paid any attention to what's going on around the country, that there are parents that have had stood up and shared what was in some books that that they even wanted to censure them from reading them. And so I think that we have to really probably give the parents the benefit of the doubt if they have a concern, and really not be so quick to dismiss that. And because there is just a lot of questionable things out there, and I think that they have a right to be heard. And definitely it needs to be looked at if there is, and this has come up in the district before. There has been some books that were objected to, and I believe it was dealt with appropriately at the time, and I'm sure if it comes up again, we would deal with it appropriately then. So.
Thank you, Mickey. April Thomas.
I as well love books. Our new media center, rest assured, is full of books. It's a beautiful meld of technology and books, and plenty of plugins to charge your Chromebook. Parents in our school are always offered the option of an alternative curriculum. So engaged parents are aware of what's going on. If they're not pleased with what's being taught, that is always, always an opportunity. I think teachers are more than willing to work with parents in these situations. And I'm absolutely not about making book choices for other people, but certainly supporting any book choice someone would want to make for their own family.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, April Thomas. Ethan Wells.
I would have to agree with April on that. As a school board member, I'm not going to tell an individual family what books their child should be reading, what they shouldn't be reading. We take really good, careful consideration on the books and the curriculum we're bringing into our classrooms and into our libraries. So rest assured to the parents and to the community that we are doing our due diligence on that. Our school board is, and our librarians, our administration, they do a really good job of that already. But if that concern ever was to come up, for me, it's always listening. I got to listen to the concern. Why is this an issue for the parent? And then try to come up with a solution. And maybe that solution is creating another alternative for that family. That's not that particular book. But there's not always going to be maybe a solution for taking a book out of the library for a specific reason. But definitely there to listen, definitely there to represent that family or the community member, and then voice that to the rest of the board and hopefully be able to come up with a really good solution for it.
Thank you, Ethan. Ashley Schoenberger.
I guess if that situation were to come up and a parent approached me about a book they found in the library that was inappropriate, I would obviously first ask them what about the book was inappropriate. And, I love books too. Like, books are amazing and I love reading and children should love reading, and I love the idea of teaching children a love for diverse kinds of books. But I will say that there are certain things that maybe shouldn't be available to 12 and 13-year-olds and 14-year-olds. And I think our public library has a section in it that says banned books. And I think that's amazing, and I think that our public library should have that. When it comes to our school libraries, I'm not quite as sure. But I wouldn't be about banning books because you don't agree with it. Well, not banning, but I wouldn't be about removing books from the school library because I don't agree with what's taught or I don't like what's taught. But if there is actual, and I don't know that in our library we have any of these things, but if there is actual inappropriate or explicit things that are being available to our young children or even our young high schoolers, that's certainly something to look at.
Thank you, Ashley. Mary Rotter.
Yeah, well, with part of my education being K-12 reading, again, like everyone else said, it's definitely important to listen to someone's concern and acknowledge that their concern is valid. With reading, is like any other subject area that there's different levels of interest, and in reading, you have to match the interest with ability, and there's so many complex opportunities to help kids be passionate about books and reading and become better people. And I think it's really about the relationships that we build with the families and the teachers with the kids and the peers with the peers, so that we can better understand where everyone's coming from, so that we can work together to solve the problem or what they foresee as a problem. And I would bet and I would assume that our school district has policies and procedures about how to go about book choices.
Thank you, Mary. It is time for our last question already. I can't believe it. I'd like to ask the timers to give 2 minutes on this closing. I have so many good questions that have come from the audience, and I'm going to ask you one really tough one, and then mention that there were also concerns about absenteeism and assistance to children with mental health issues are important questions. But this question is kind of the focus. What role do you think the school board should have, if any, in determining what curriculum should be taught in the classroom? And the first speaker on this one is Mickey.
Great.
Thanks a lot, huh?
Oh, yeah. What role should we have? I mean, as a one that's just considering being in this position, I don't know what role they currently have had. I have done some reading on this, and it's my understanding that the school board does have a part of, I guess, responsibility in helping to select it, and also that if I'm correct, and someone can tell me if I'm wrong, but I happen to read it on somewhere that we don't actually have to accept the state standards on some things. And like I said, this is going to be an issue that's going to come up with this social studies curriculum. And so I don't have a complete answer on it, but my understanding is that the school board does have the opportunity to speak into it and advise about it. and along with parents and maybe faculty that are asked to sit in on it. And like I said, I don't have a complete answer, but I think it's something that's definitely going to come up, and it is a concern. So,
Okay, thank you, Mickey. April Thomas.
Absolutely, the school board is involved in curriculum choices. The school is involved in curriculum choices. The state determines standards, but I don't think what people understand is they come in a binder that's almost an inch thick of possible things that can be taught. And from there, our school has a curriculum advisory committee that pulls out essential learning things that they want the kids to learn, and there's a whole process that goes through of what are we going to teach the kids from the standards, how are we going to teach those standards. So I think it's a topic that's maybe gotten a little bit more exposure in a negative light than it probably needs to have, and I would absolutely, the school is involved, but there's a very rigorous curriculum review process once we get the packet from the state.
Okay, and Ethan Walls?
Yeah, this is a really good question, and I think there's a lot of people in the audience. I know I've heard it personally as I've been out campaigning and visiting with community members. In regards to curriculum, the big word, the critical race theory, that's been a hot topic. And not that it should be a hot topic, but it is. And so I think that that a lot of people think that we have a lot of teachers that are bringing in views into the curriculum that we bring on as a school district. They're bringing their own views into the classroom, and that's what they're promoting to their students. And that's not the case here in Detroit Lakes Public Schools. We have really excellent teachers that follow the curriculum they're given. I think from a school board perspective, I think we really need to be paying attention in the next few years, the new curriculum, the new textbooks, the new technology-based curriculum we're bringing into our district, and really watching for it being embedded in the curriculum, that our teachers feel that the school board is entrusted to make a right decision, and the district, the committee, the curriculum committee, really does their due diligence and really reads through it carefully of the options that we could bring on to our district. And then I think it's our duty as school board members to really review that ourselves and make sure that we're making informed decisions, because our decisions is what's going to shape our district and our community going forward and what our students are learning. So I think it's definitely a responsibility, and I really want to be paying attention to that over the next few years, if I was elected.
Thank you, Ethan Walls. Ashley Schoenberger.
Well, I think the school board, and when it comes to dealing with and choosing and implementing curriculums, one of the biggest things that we need to consider is going back to the basics. Reading, writing, math, science, history, social, geography, all of that stuff. But I think mainly, as far as choosing curriculums, as far as figuring out what we're going to teach these kids that are so important, that are so vital, is it really needs to be a collaboration with teachers, with parents, with families, with kids. And those curriculums need to follow interest, they need to follow need, they need to follow reality. What can we really actually teach and implement? And we need to consider our unique district, our unique town, because this town is so amazing and the kids in it are so diverse and so awesome. And as a school board, I think it needs to be such a team effort, working with families, working with teachers, working with that curriculum committee. And I don't know all of what goes into it, but I'm excited to hopefully get to see.
Thank you, Ashley Schoenberger. Mary Rotter.
Yeah, I know enough about curriculum that is very specifically chosen, and that not only is about the choosing of the curriculum, but it's how you support your staff and how staff develop relationships with children and their families to really help maximize the learning. And when you're a teacher, you have to think about, you might have a curriculum, but you have to think about the kids in your class. Are they kinesthetic learners? Are they audio learners? Are they visual learners? And you have every single one of them in your class. So how do you maximize that curriculum with all your different ideas and really keep the kids energized and ready to learn every day. And, you know, I just really am confident in the growth and innovation that Detroit Lakes Public Schools has with our curriculum and how they prepare lifelong learners and support students to be active members of our community.
Thank you, Mary Rotter. Susie Felt.
The role that the school board should have in choosing the curriculum, or in choosing curriculum, I think the school board has a huge responsibility in choosing curriculum for the kids. I mean, like April said, that with the advisory committee, you know, people that are there to really look at it and see if there's any additional agendas that are being promoted through certain curriculums. You know, I think that's kind of what the hot topic is, and this where this question is leading to. Obviously, what we want for our kids, or what I want for our kids, is truth. You know, I want honest, real things. Like with the critical race theory, it's like let's just teach what true history is. You know, what we believe it is. So yeah, I think the school board has great responsibility in that, and this advisory committee would have great responsibility in really reviewing these things. I think teachers also would have a huge say in, you know, what they're willing to teach. You know, I think some teachers maybe have been put in positions where they're kind of like, I don't know if this is going against what I actually believe, or if I feel comfortable teaching these things. So I think teachers, I'm assuming, are maybe part of that committee too, and that they would also have that responsibility.
Thank you, Susie Felt. Well, that concludes our questions. We have 6 excellent candidates here, I would say. And when you go to the polls, you will vote for 3 school board members. And there are 2 candidates who are unable to be participating, so there'll be 8 candidates on the ballot. But I'd like to thank the 6 of you who are here tonight and the excellent lecture.